Mesdames, Messieurs,
Mr. President, Madam First Lady, ladies and gentlemen.
Mesdames, Messieurs, je voulais, à l'issue de ce G7 que nous venons de tenir pendant près de 2 jours, évidemment vous rendre compte, mais avant toute chose, remercier le président Trump, l'ensemble des chefs d'État et de gouvernement présents pour ce travail extrêmement productif et les très bonnes discussions, les très bons échanges que nous avons eus depuis samedi soir ensemble. En effet, il y avait beaucoup de nervosité au début de ce G7, beaucoup d'attentes, parfois beaucoup de tensions, de conflictualité qui pouvaient être rapportées. Et je peux aussi vraiment dire que ce à quoi nous avons tenu ensemble tout particulièrement, c'est qu'un message d'unité, un esprit positif, les discussions puissent ressortir, et c'est ce qui est vraiment ressorti de nos échanges sur de nombreux sujets. Nous n'avons pas négocié, comme je m'y étais engagé, un très long texte. Et vous sera remis dans quelques instants une seule page de déclaration. Et ensuite beaucoup d'annexes, de textes qui ont été agréés. Mais une seule page qui revient sur quelques sujets évidemment essentiels, au-delà des discussions et des sessions de travail que nous avons pu avoir. Nous avons tenu à faire cette conférence de presse ensemble. Je laisserai ensuite le président Trump, la première dame et l'ensemble de son staff ici dans cette salle pour qu'ils puissent poursuivre par sa propre conférence de presse et répondre à la presse américaine et internationale sur tous les autres sujets. Et je rendrai compte de manière plus détaillée un peu plus tard de l'ensemble des points sur lesquels nous avons réussi à trouver un accord et les avancer sur de nombreux sujets, de la biodiversité en passant par le numérique et les détails. Mais nous tenons à avoir cette conférence de presse ensemble parce que l'année prochaine, ce sont les États-Unis d'Amérique qui auront à accueillir le G7. Ce passage de témoin de présidence à présidence est un point auquel nous tenions. Et puis je dois vous dire, parce que nous avons, durant ces 2 jours et demi, fait beaucoup de choses ensemble. On a sans doute plusieurs points communs, mais l'un tout particulièrement avec le président Trump. Nous n'aimons pas perdre notre temps et nous aimons avoir des résultats, des accords et mettre tout le monde dans une dynamique positive. Et donc, dès l'arrivée du président Trump, à travers le déjeuner en tête-à-tête que nous avons eu, qui, je dois dire, a été sans doute une des discussions les plus productives et les plus riches que nous ayons eues ensemble, nous sommes mis dans une dynamique qui a permis véritablement de faire avancer nombre de dossiers. Je veux vraiment vous remercier, Monsieur le Président, pour cet esprit et l'efficacité. Juste quelques mots sur des points qui étaient très attendus, en particulier pour nos 2 pays. Sur l'Iran. Sur l'Iran, le président Trump et moi-même avons eu des échanges toutes ces dernières semaines, et particulièrement ces 2 derniers jours. Nous sommes d'accord pour dire que l'Iran doit respecter ses obligations nucléaires, doit avoir un comportement responsable dans le Golfe et travailler avec nous. Et au fond, on a 2 choses très claires auxquelles nous tenons. L'Iran ne doit jamais avoir l'arme nucléaire. Et cette situation ne doit pas menacer la stabilité de la région. La France a pris plusieurs initiatives, et j'en ai toujours tenu informé le président Trump, pour essayer de trouver des moyens techniques de bouger. Parce que les décisions américaines des derniers mois ont mis beaucoup de pression et doivent nous mettre en situation d'améliorer justement la sécurité régionale de la région. Par cette coordination, nous avons pris une initiative hier qui a été de faire revenir le ministre des Affaires étrangères iranien. Il y a eu de nombreux échanges avec le ministre français qui ont permis justement de dessiner un chemin. Rien n'est fait. Les choses sont encore éminemment fragiles. Mais il y a des discussions qui se sont ainsi avancées sur le plan technique, avec véritablement des avancées. Et puis ce matin, le président Rouhani a clairement dit qu'il était prêt à rencontrer tout responsable politique si c'est dans l'intérêt de son pays. Ce que j'ai dit au ministre Zarif et ce que j'ai dit par téléphone au président Rouhani, c'est que s'il acceptait une rencontre avec le président Trump, ma conviction est qu'un accord peut être trouvé. On en connaît les termes, les objectifs, et il faut maintenant se mettre autour de la table et y arriver. Et donc je souhaite que dans les prochaines semaines, sur la base de ces échanges, nous puissions réussir à avoir un entretien au sommet entre le président Rouhani et le président Trump. Bien entendu, moi-même et nos partenaires qui ont un rôle à jouer dans la négociation nucléaire pourront être là et seront pleinement associés. Je pense que ce rendez-vous est très important et que ces derniers jours de clarification, à la fois les messages forts qui ont été apportés, le mouvement qui a été fait, le travail qui a été fait aussi entre nos ministres, et je veux remercier ici le ministre Mnuchin, le ministre Maire, le ministre Le Drian qui sont là et qui ont permis de beaucoup avancer sur ces sujets. Nous avons créé les conditions de cette rencontre et donc d'un accord. Je suis toujours très prudent, il faut être très humble, mais je pense que c'est en tout cas quelque chose qui stoppe toute escalade et qui permet d'arriver aux objectifs que nous poursuivons. Et je veux vraiment vous remercier, Président, d'avoir, durant la discussion que nous avons eue à la fois samedi midi et samedi soir, montré cette volonté de trouver un accord sur votre tempérament et de trouver aussi dans des termes qui sont bons pour la sécurité de la région. Parce que l'objectif final, l'exigence que vous avez, c'est qu'il n'y ait pas justement l'obtention de l'arme nucléaire et d'avoir plus de visibilité dans le temps. Sur le commerce, nous partageons beaucoup de constats, d'analyses. On a eu une très bonne discussion et je reviendrai plus tard dans le détail. Mais là-dessus, je crois pouvoir dire que l'échange a clarifié ce qui légitimement c'est que les États-Unis considèrent aujourd'hui que la situation n'est pas juste. Nous avons des règles internationales sur le commerce. Et je crois que nous sommes tous d'accord, et d'ailleurs nous l'avons dit dans cette page que nous sortons ensemble, qu'il est bon d'avoir des règles et une organisation tous ensemble du commerce. Mais cette organisation collective, elle n'a pas été assez efficace pour lever les barrières réglementaires. Elle n'a pas été assez efficace pour régler les problèmes quand il y en avait. Elle n'a pas été assez efficace pour protéger la propriété intellectuelle de nos industriels. Il y a des discussions en cours, en particulier une discussion entre le président Trump et le président Xi. On a vu encore ces dernières heures des évolutions et un accord qui sera, je l'espère, trouvé. Mais nous avons aussi ici collectivement réaffirmé notre volonté de changer ces règles du commerce pour arriver à nos fins. Et dire on doit les moderniser profondément, les réformer, pour que toutes ces situations injustes dont nos pays ont parfois été victimes, qui fait que nos travailleurs ne sont pas respectés, que la propriété intellectuelle n'est pas protégée, doivent être stoppés. Et là, le processus de réforme, nous connaissons et nous allons nous y atteler ensemble. Et ensuite, il y a eu, il faut bien le dire, beaucoup de nervosité, parfois liée à des malentendus, ou à ce que certains acteurs économiques très puissants pouvaient dire sur cette fameuse taxe numérique française. On s'en est expliqué, parfois on en a plaisanté. Mais je crois qu'on a trouvé un très bon accord, et là encore, le travail de nos ministres a permis de faire beaucoup avancer les choses. Au fond, nous avons dans nos économies des situations qui sont très injustes. C'est que certains acteurs ne payent pas d'impôts et créent une concurrence déloyale avec d'autres acteurs. Ce sont d'ailleurs ces gros acteurs internationaux qui ne payent pas d'impôts, ceux qui créent les changements les plus brutaux, créent parfois les plus grands déséquilibres mondiaux. Est-ce juste? Non. Nous avons beaucoup poussé pour changer les règles internationales sur ce sujet, le faire au niveau européen. Et c'est vrai qu'une dizaine de pays européens, la France, mais aussi l'Italie, la Grande-Bretagne, ça prête à le faire, beaucoup de pays sont en train de le prendre sur une base nationale. Mais ce n'est pas contre telle ou telle compagnie. C'est pour régler ce problème. Et d'ailleurs, beaucoup de compagnies françaises seront touchées par cette taxe. La France veut, c'est pas du tout mettre en place cette taxe. Vous m'avez entendu pour certains il y a plusieurs mois. C'est régler le problème international. Je crois que là, on a fait une vraie avancée parce que nous avons ensemble acté le fait que nous allons travailler pour trouver un accord en 2020 pour moderniser les règles de la fiscalité internationale dans le cadre de l'OCDE. Ce qui nous permettra de prendre en compte ces évolutions nécessaires et de lutter contre la concurrence fiscale dommageable qui détruit des emplois, y compris aux États-Unis. Sur cette taxe numérique, nous avons aussi beaucoup travaillé en bilatéral franco-américain et nous avons un accord pour sortir des difficultés qu'il y a eu entre nous. Et donc on va travailler ensemble sur cette base bilatérale et sur cette base internationale pour trouver une solution, et je l'ai dit très clairement. Le jour où on a cette fiscalité internationale, un accord qui est bon de part et d'autre, que ce faisant on permet de régler des situations internationales qui étaient extrêmement négatives,
address
et qu'on
joint
modernise le système
international
fiscal
problems.
international
And the
ensemble.
situation right now
On
is
travaille
very
à des
negative,
objectifs
and the
communs
international tax
avec un
system
esprit de
definitely
coopération et
needs
je
to
pense
be
que
modernized.
c'est
And I
extrêmement
think we
important.
will work together in
Voilà,
a
sur
spirit
la
of
Libye,
cooperation
sur
on this.
la Syrie, la
As to
Corée du Nord,
Libya,
Hong Kong, vous
Syria,
verrez dans le texte, on a beaucoup
North
avancé,
Korea,
travaillé
Hong
ensemble
Kong,
dans
you
cet
will
esprit
see
d'unité
in
que
the
j'évoquais.
one-page document that we
Et
have
enfin, sur
made
beaucoup
considerable
d'initiatives concrètes
headway
aussi,
in
je veux
the
en
spirit
citer une
of
dont nous avons parlé le
unity,
premier
and
soir, qui est
we have
l'Amazonie. Le
also
président Trump a eu le président
done some
Bolsonaro au
significant
téléphone avant
work
de venir. Il a
as far as
d'ailleurs
the
lui-même engagé
Amazon
très rapidement aux
region is
États-Unis d'Amérique en
concerned.
soutien
There has
auprès des
been
populations et nous
relations
avons
with
acté
President Bolsonaro,
d'un
and
plan
we have
d'initiative extrêmement ambitieux que
taken
le président
a very
Piñera a présenté ce
ambitious
matin.
initiative
Après avoir
that
fait cette
President
concertation
Piñera
avec l'ensemble
presented this morning
des chefs d'État et
after
de
having
gouvernement de la
discussed
région
with all
comme
the heads of state
nous
and
l'avions
government
souhaité
of
et
the
le président
region,
Trump l'avait
as
souhaité.
we had wished
Voilà,
and
je ne veux pas rentrer dans
as
plus de
President
détails, mais
Trump
je voulais
had wished
insister
as
sur
well.
ces points.
I don't want to go
Pour vous
into the
dire que
details,
nous
but I just
avons,
wanted to highlight these few
avec
things that I just
beaucoup d'entrain,
mentioned.
travaillé
I just wanted
ensemble
to
très
say that we
étroitement avec le
worked
président
together
Trump durant ces
hand
2
in
jours.
hand with
Que
President
nous avons
Trump
réussi à
over
dégager
these 2
durant ce
days.
G7 et je veux
And
remercier
during
tous nos
this
collègues.
G7, and I would like to thank all my colleagues, in fact, for this.
Je crois des points de convergence
We have
inédits,
managed to
très
reach
positifs qui permettent d'avancer utilement.
convergence at unprecedented levels on several issues. And now we're going to continue this work in the weeks and months to follow
La Corée du Nord,
with
sait
a
ô
lot of
combien le
energy.
président Trump est engagé dans ce combat.
North Korea
Et continuera de le
knows
faire. On nous en a parlé
how
tout à l'heure et on sera derrière
strongly
lui.
President
J'espère qu'on
Trump
trouvera
is
un accord
committed
sur la Chine qui serait
to
un vrai
this
changement.
issue.
Et on
There's
sera
also
ensemble
the
côte à côte
agreement
sur tous les combats
with
qui sont
China,
à
and
mener.
we're going to work hand in
Je voulais
hand
vraiment vous remercier,
on all
Président,
of the different
de votre
issues.
présence et de cette action
I would like to
durant ces
thank
2
you,
jours.
President Trump, for
Remercier la
your
Première Dame,
involvement in the last couple of
également
days. I would like to
à vos
thank
côtés,
your First
qui a
Lady, who was by
été
your
active
side and who
aux côtés
has
de mon
been
épouse
very
et
active
de toutes les Premières Dames présentes, mais
side
qui
by
nous
side
fait
with
toujours
my
l'honneur
own
de sa
spouse,
présence en France.
and
Elle
she
sait ô
has
combien elle est
honored us
populaire dans notre pays.
in our country. She
Et
knows how
Président, vous
popular she
aurez
is in
l'année
our
prochaine
country.
aussi la
And
présidence de ce G7 et
President
je
Trump
vous laisse
will be hosting
également
the G7
annoncer
summit next
à nos
year,
amis
so I'm
où
going
et
to give him
comment
the
vous
floor
comptez
so that he
l'organiser.
can tell
J'y
us
serai avec
how
la même
you
volonté
intend
de
to
construire,
organize the
de bâtir,
G7, and I will
de
be
créer
there
l'unité et la
by your
convergence.
side
Merci
with the
infiniment,
same will
Président.
and the same determination and the same desire for unity. Thank you.
Well, I want to thank you very much, and I think more importantly than anything, I wanted to come up here to say that because the job that President Macron and your wife, by the way, who is a great lady, Bridget, would like to thank Bridget. She has been spectacular, spent a tremendous amount of time with Melania and some of the folks who came in, some of the wives that came in, and they had a great tour of the area, and it's a beautiful area. But I want to thank you very much, Mr. President, for the incredible job you did. This is a truly successful G7. There was tremendous unity. There was great unity. Sometimes I'd read a little bit of false reporting, and I will tell you there was, in fact, we would have stayed for another hour. Nobody wanted to leave. We were accomplishing a lot, but I think more importantly, we were getting along very well. 7 countries, and it really was the G7, and you have been a spectacular leader on this. And I want to thank you, and I want to thank the great country of France. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, my friend.
And with that, I think, excuse me, I was, go ahead, let's go.
No, I just wanted to say we will take 2 questions on each side. Afterwards, I will say goodbye to my friend President Trump. I will leave the room in order for you to follow up with.
If you'd like, we could do 2 each, and then we'll both leave the room. Would you prefer that, or would you prefer? I just don't want to have the President of France standing here while I'm answering these absolutely wonderful questions. Okay. So why don't we start with a question for France?
These 4 questions are about G7 and U.S.-Franco relations.
And Emmanuel's going to have his own press conference after this.
Exactly.
So that'll be fine. Go ahead. To France, John. To France.
Thank you, Marco. Of course, the host country. They should go first. Monsieur President Macron, China was not on the official agenda, but it was certainly a big part of the discussions here at the G7. Are you concerned that the trade war that exists now between the United States and China could harm the global economy? If you are, did you talk to President Trump about that? And are you also at the same time concerned that if China's current trade practices go unchecked, that a decade from now we could be in a very terrible situation?
Sur ce sujet, nous en avons évidemment longuement
On this
discuté
subject, we obviously had lengthy discussions
durant la session sur l'économie mondiale
during the
d'hier matin.
session on the world economy yesterday morning.
Sur vos deux sujets,
On both subjects,
les discussions qui sont en cours entre la Chine et les
discussions underway
États-Unis
between
d'Amérique,
China and the United States of
évidemment,
America
elles créent, on le voit bien,
obviously,
des
as we
incertitudes
clearly see,
qui
create
agitent les marchés, les
uncertainty,
investisseurs,
which disturb
et qui
markets
pendant le
and
temps de la négociation
investors,
créent des
and
tensions,
during the
ce qui est le
negotiations
cas
will
de
create
toute
tensions,
discussion.
which is the case of any
Et
discussion.
on l'a vu sur les
We saw
différents marchés
this
actions
on
que nous
different
connaissons.
stock markets
Maintenant, la question,
with
c'est
which we're familiar.
l'issue de ces
Now the
discussions.
question is to know what the
C'est
result of these
pourquoi
discussions
ce à
will
quoi
be.
nous sommes attachés
And
sur ce
that's
point,
why
c'est qu'un accord puisse être
we
trouvé.
considered that it was so
entre
important an
les
agreement
deux
be
premières
found
puissances économiques.
between the two greatest
Le président
economic
Trump nous
powers in the
a
world.
clairement indiqué sa volonté de
President
trouver un
Trump
accord.
clearly showed us
Nous
his
avons d'ailleurs
willingness
noté
to arrive at an
encore il y a
agreement.
quelques heures
We saw just a
des
few
messages
hours
plutôt
ago
positifs,
the very
encourageants,
positive
qui
and
ont pu être
encouraging
distillés.
message that
Donc on
could
voit
be
que les choses
distilled
bougent.
from this. We see that things are
Mon souhait
moving.
très profond, c'est qu'un accord puisse
Our
être trouvé
deep
entre les
wish is
États-Unis
for an
d'Amérique
agreement to be
et
found
la Chine
between
sur
the
le plan
United
commercial.
States and
Parce que je
China
pense que ce sera
concerning trade,
positif.
because I think
pour tout le
that would
monde.
be something positive for everyone.
Ni les États-Unis ni la Chine ne sont
Neither the
naïfs
United
sur le plan
States nor
politique, sur le
China
plan économique et
is
industriel. Donc cet accord
economically
il
or
devra être
industrially naive.
équilibré pour
It
être
has
bon
to be a
de tous
balanced
les côtés.
agreement that will be good for
Nous
everyone.
veillons à ce qu'il soit bon pour
And
l'ensemble du
we
globe.
will be
Et
vigilant
donc,
to see that
dans
it's
ce
good for the
contexte-là,
whole world. In that
les paramètres
context,
soient pris en compte, ça a été aussi
our
l'objet de
different
notre discussion.
parameters will be taken on
Donc,
board,
ce
and
qui
that
est
was one of the
mauvais,
subjects
si
of
je
our
puis dire, pour
discussion.
l'économie mondiale, c'est
What's
l'incertitude.
bad for the world
Et donc, plus
economy
vite
is
cet accord est
uncertainty.
trouvé, plus
And
on
the
réduit cette
quicker an
incertitude.
agreement is arrived
Et
at,
c'est
the
très
quicker
clairement ce que
that
nous avons échangé
uncertainty
hier,
will
et
dissipate.
ce qui est la volonté
That's what we discussed
du président
yesterday,
américain.
and that's the American
Sur ce qui est ensuite
president's
des pratiques
wish.
commerciales.
In terms of
Je
trade
l'ai dit tout à l'heure.
practices, I said this
Pour
earlier,
moi, la manière
for
la
me,
plus
the
efficace pour
most
nous
effective way
et la plus
forward
stratégique
and the most strategic way
de régler
forward
notre relation commerciale avec la Chine,
in settling our trade relations
c'est de
with
développer
China
les échanges,
is to develop
mais de
trade,
s'assurer que ces échanges
but also
s'inscrivent
to
dans le cadre
ensure
des
that
règles
that trade
internationales.
is part of
Les
international
problèmes que
trade
nous avons
rules.
parfois eu.
The problems we
On connaît très
sometimes
bien
have.
avec l'économie chinoise.
We're very
C'est une
familiar with
grande
this with the
économie avec
Chinese
laquelle il y a eu beaucoup
economy.
d'investissements, qu'il
It's a
s'agisse des
major
États-Unis
economy where
d'Amérique,
there's been
des
lots of
pays européens,
investment from the
du
United
Canada ou du
States,
Japon.
European countries,
Le
Canada,
problème,
and
c'est
Japan.
les sujets de
The
respect de la
problem
propriété
is
intellectuelle,
respecting intellectual property,
c'est le traitement de surcapacité,
dealing with excess
qui
capacity,
parfois ont déséquilibré certains marchés mondiaux,
which sometimes
et
unbalances
c'est la
some world
capacité à
markets,
régler très rapidement les conflits qu'on peut
and
avoir et
the
de fixer les
ability
situations
to deal
déloyales.
rapidly with
Force
conflicts
est
we
de
may have
constater
and with
que
unfair situations.
lorsqu'on a fait ce
Now, we
commerce
are obliged
hors
to
des
see
règles de
that when
l'OMC,
this type
les
of
choses ne
trade
marchaient pas bien, on
happens
n'était pas bien
outside of
protégés.
WTO rules,
Et
things
qu'ensuite,
don't work
lorsqu'on a
very
fait dans
well
les
and we're
règles
not
de
properly
l'OMC,
protected.
avec
And when
ses
you
règles
follow
existantes, n'a pas permis de bien
WTO
régler
rules,
ces sujets.
the WTO rules
Et
as
donc,
they
ce que
presently
nous
exist
avons
haven't
décidé
allowed us to
ensemble
be protected
hier
on this
matin,
subject. So what we decided
c'est
together
maintenant
yesterday morning
d'accélérer, mais avec un agenda
was
très
to
réaliste, de dire
accelerate with a
qu'on doit
very
changer les règles
realistic
du commerce
agenda and to
international
say we're going to
pour que
change the
chacun
rules
puisse
of
échanger
world
de
trade
manière libre
so that
et
everyone
juste,
can have free and fair
équilibrée.
trade,
Et donc,
balanced
que ces
trade,
sujets que je viens
and
d'évoquer, qui
that the
parfois ont
subjects
été
that I've just mentioned,
mauvais
which have
pour nos
sometimes
économies,
been bad for our
puissent être réglés
economies,
dans un cadre international
can be
qu'on veut
settled
profondément
in an
changer. Et
international
donc là, c'est à
framework
nous,
which we
je
wish
peux dire à nos
profoundly to
ministres,
change.
dans les forums
And
qui sont prévus,
we and our
de faire
different
ce travail. On
ministers
partage le
in
même
the
objectif
different
politique.
contexts that we're putting forward are
Et
going
donc,
to
pour moi, la
share
manière de
these
régler
political goals. And
ces
to my way of
pratiques que vous
thinking, the
évoquiez,
way to deal with the
c'est sans doute
practices
des
you have
accords,
mentioned,
j'espère positifs, qui seront
certainly
trouvés.
the
Et c'est
positive
le
agreements
renouvellement
that
de nos règles
will
commerciales internationales
be
comme nous
arrived
nous
at,
sommes
and
engagés
also the
hier
renewal
matin.
of our international trade rules, as we said yesterday morning.
President Trump, are you satisfied with how far the proposed WTO reforms will go? Because
No, I'm not,
You've
but-
spoken about the need for that. And second to that,
We're getting there, John. Just to answer that. We're
second to
getting
that,
there.
do you believe that China is sincere about what it said this morning?
Yes.
Or do you think that they are just trying to calm the markets and play for time? Because our sister network, the Fox Business Network, has been told by Chinese sources that they have no plans on going back to where they were in terms of the negotiations this spring on intellectual property, forced technology transfer, ownership. So
We'll see, John.
Do you trust that they are sincere?
I
about
do.
this?
I think they want to make a deal very badly. I think that was elevated last night, very late in the night. I see an alert, or you would call it breaking news, and it was that the vice chairman, we're not talking about somebody from China at a low level, the vice chairman of China came out that he wants to see a deal made. He wants it to be made under calm conditions, using the word calm. I agree with him on that. And China has taken a very hard hit over the last number of months. They've lost 3 million jobs. It'll soon be much more than 3 million jobs. Their chain is breaking. The chain is breaking up like nobody's seen before. And once that happens, it's very hard to put it back together. You understand? I think they very much want to make a deal. And the longer they wait, the harder it is to put it back, if it can be put back at all. So I believe they want to do a deal. The tariffs have hit them very hard. In a fairly short period of time, the United States will have collected over $100 billion in tariffs. And I say it again, the media failed to acknowledge it. But if you look at the goods coming in from China, we're talking about China, not other countries. If you look at the goods, they have a power that others don't have. But that power is only good for so long. They've manipulated their currency, they've devalued their currency, and they put a lot of cash into the system. And because of that, the prices have not gone up, or if they've gone up, it's been very little, because they want to keep people working. If the prices go up, they're not going to be able to keep people working. They're not going to be able to compete. It's a brilliant market. It's a brilliant, brilliant market, the world market. A lot of markets are brilliant. And frankly, I think that China cannot, I don't know, maybe they can, maybe they can't. I don't think they can do that. And I think they're very smart. And I think President Xi is a great leader who happens to be a brilliant man. And he can't lose 3 million jobs in a very short period of time. And that's going to be magnified many times over. And it's going to break down the Chinese system of trade. And he can't do that. So when you say, do you think they want to? Maybe they want to and maybe they don't. But I think they want to make a deal. I'm not sure they have a choice. And I don't say that as a threat. I don't think they have a choice. In the meantime, the United States, which has never collected 10 cents from China, will, in a fairly short period of time, be over $100 billion in tariffs. So I think they want to make a deal very badly. Go ahead.
Deuxième question.
Second question.
Messieurs les présidents, Mathieu Koch, BFM TV.
Mr. President,
Monsieur Macron, vous venez de déclarer avoir créé
you've
les
just
conditions d'une
declared that you created the conditions for a meeting between President Trump and President Rouhani. Does that mean that France, for instance, might be a mediator in that meeting? And more concretely, what did you discuss in terms of that possible agreement with Iran? Then a question for Mr. Trump. Are you ready to lift or to soften American sanctions on Iranian oil exports, and would you be ready to meet President Rouhani? Thank you.
Sur la première question,
On the first question,
les termes de la discussion
the
ils sont
terms
assez
of the
simples.
discussion are quite simple.
Un accord a été signé en
An
2015,
agreement was signed in 2015,
le 14 juillet 2015,
on
celui
July
qu'on appelle le
14th. We
JCPOA.
call it the JCPOA.
Et cet accord a
And that
prévu
agreement
des garanties pour la communauté
set
internationale, en
forth
particulier pour les
guarantees for the
signataires de cet accord,
international community, including the signatories
Iran
of that
n'enrichisse
agreement,
plus
saying
l'uranium
that Iran would
sur
no
une
longer
période de temps.
enrich
Je simplifie les
uranium
termes de
over
l'accord, mais
a
jusqu'en
certain period of
2025.
time. I'm
En
simplifying this, but
contrepartie
up to 2025.
de la réouverture
In exchange
secteurs
for
économiques et
reopening
d'un
many
investissement
economic
massif,
sectors and
largement
massive
porté, je viens de
investment
dire, par les États-Unis
largely
d'Amérique.
made by the United States.
Cet accord avait
That
un double
agreement
avantage,
had a twofold advantage,
stabilité et sécurité,
stability
et
and
réouverture
security,
économique, ce qui était bon pour l'Iran.
and also reopening economically
Cet accord
speaking,
avait
which
des
was good for
insuffisances.
Iran.
Je rappelle au
This
demeurant que
agreement
les
also
négociateurs
had
français en
drawbacks and
2015
shortcomings. French negotiators in
furent les plus âpres
2015
et que la France
were
était la plus
the
hésitante à
most
signer cet accord.
determined, and France was the country
Précisément
that
parce que
hesitated
considérait
most
qu'il
to
fallait
sign
le
this
maximum de
agreement
garanties.
because we considered we needed as
Le
many
président
guarantees
Trump,
as
durant sa
possible.
campagne, s'est engagé
President Trump, during
devant
his
ses électeurs
campaign, made a commitment to
à
those
avoir
who
quelque
voted
chose
for
de
him
plus exigeant, de plus dur, parce qu'il
to
considérait que cet
be
accord
more
était insuffisant.
demanding and tougher because
Il a
he
conduit à
considered
sortir
that
du
this
JCPOA.
agreement was insufficient, which
Et
caused
donc
him
aujourd'hui,
to leave it.
par les sanctions qui ont été prises par
Today,
le président
because of
Trump,
the sanctions made
l'économie
by
iranienne
President Trump, the Iranian
subit de
economy
fortes conséquences et un fort ralentissement.
is having serious
donc,
consequences and a
cette
serious
situation, très
slowdown.
clairement,
And that
c'est l'aspect,
situation very
si je puis dire,
clearly is the
positif qui
aspect,
peut être vu de
we
notre
might
point
say
de
the
vue,
positive side of things.
créer une
From one
pression et
standpoint,
donc les
is
conditions
creating
pour
pressure and therefore the
améliorer les termes d'un
necessary
accord.
conditions to
De l'autre
improve the
côté,
terms of an
elle conduit à des
agreement. On the
réactions
other
côté
hand, it's
iranien
leading to
qui signent un
reactions in
accord, mais les
Iran
parties
who are
prenantes
saying, well, we've signed
en sorte
this
qu'elles ne respectent
agreement,
pas ces
but
termes,
those who have signed
et
it
donc
are not
ont commencé
respecting its terms,
symboliquement à
and
enrichir
so
l'uranium.
starting symbolically to enrich uranium, and they risk that
Au moment où nous nous
they're
trouvons,
going to go
quel est
further
l'intérêt
still
que
and
nous
leave the
devons
JCPOA.
poursuivre,
So,
compte tenu des deux objectifs que je citais?
given the two goals that we have,
Être sûr
where are we
que
going
l'Iran ne
with
se
this?
dote jamais
We need
d'armes
to be
nucléaires
sure that
et qu'il
Iran
n'y ait
will
pas non
never
plus
get a nuclear
d'embrasement dans la
weapon
région.
and that there will
Et
be
donc,
no
ce dont nous avons
flare-ups in
parlé
the
très
region.
concrètement,
And so what we discussed
c'est de
very
voir comment
concretely was to
on
see
peut
how
améliorer
we could
fortement,
improve
au fond,
very
comment on peut
considerably,
bâtir un nouvel accord
or
nucléaire.
really, in fact, build a
avec
new nuclear agreement with Iran.
Le président Trump a été très clair
President
samedi
Trump
soir pour
was
dire
very
qu'il
clear,
veut une période de temps beaucoup
saying
plus
that we
longue,
would need a much longer
qu'il
time
veut
frame for
plus de
it,
sites surveillés.
that
Donc
there needed
voilà,
to
c'est
be
comment on améliore,
surveillance of many
comment on
more
construit un
sites,
accord qui est
and
beaucoup
this is
plus
how we
ambitieux
can build a much
sur le
further
plan
reaching
des exigences
agreement
en
in
termes de
terms of
sûreté.
our security demands.
Et de l'autre côté,
And on the other hand,
on convainc les Iraniens,
we
on peut
need to
convaincre les
convince
Iraniens d'aller dans
the
ce sens
Iranians
si on leur donne
to go in that
précisément
direction, and we can do that
des
if we
compensations
give them
économiques.
economic
Et donc, si on
compensation of
bouge,
some form.
soit sur des lignes de crédit,
If we
soit sur des
make some
réouvertures de
movement
secteurs.
in terms of lines of credit or reopening certain
Je ne
economic
peux
sectors.
aujourd'hui rien vous dire
I can't tell you
publiquement,
today,
parce que tout ce que je vous
publicly,
dirais dans le détail viendrait
more about
au fond
this,
fragiliser
because
les
anything
discussions
I will
précises
tell
que
you
nous
in
sommes en train d'avoir.
detail
Mais c'est ça les
will
termes.
jeopardize the
Nous sommes en
conversations
train de
we're going to
discuter.
have. But this is
C'est la base
basically
de
what we're
notre initiative.
discussing.
Il y a eu une
On the
initiative
basis of
japonaise,
our
on fait
initiative,
en
there's
transparence
also a
avec le président,
Japanese initiative.
ayant
I'm talking in
s'étant mis
total
d'accord sur un
transparency
objectif
with the
stratégique,
president, but we
je veux
agreed on
qu'on
a
avance
strategic
dans
goal,
ce cadre, on
and I
propose.
want us to go further in this
À un moment
framework
donné,
and to make proposals.
Il faut qu'il y ait une rencontre
At a
entre le
given
président
point in
américain et le
time, there
président
will have
iranien.
to be a meeting between
Et
the
donc moi, je
American
souhaite
and
que
the
dans les
Iranian
prochaines semaines,
presidents, and I would wish that in
il y ait
coming
une
weeks,
telle rencontre.
such a meeting take place.
La France, elle joue un
France
rôle en
will play a
lien
role
avec les autres partenaires qui sont
Together with
signataires
the other
du
signatories
JCPOA.
who are our partners in the
Mais
JCPOA.
après, c'est de créer les
But after
conditions parce
that,
qu'on
we'll
aura donné
need
de la
to create
visibilité,
the necessary
effectivement,
conditions
pour
because
qu'il y
we'll
ait
have the
surtout cet
necessary
accord qui puisse être
visibility
scellé
for
et
this
cette rencontre
agreement to be signed
entre
and
les deux
sealed,
présidents.
and for this
Et
meeting
donc moi,
between
je
the two
préfère parler
presidents to take place.
d'initiatives concertées,
So I would rather
d'échanges,
talk about
plutôt
concerted
que de
initiatives
médiation,
and
parce qu'au
exchanges
fond,
rather than
on
mediation.
échange tout le temps avec le
Because at
président
the end of
Trump,
the
je
day, we have
partage son
constant
objectif.
exchanges with
On peut
President
parfois dire on
Trump.
n'est pas
I share
d'accord
his
sur la
goals.
méthode.
Sometimes
Je
we
veux
say
qu'on
we don't
arrive
agree on
et
methods,
qu'on
but I
trouve cet
want
accord.
to get there. I want to
Il me
have an
semble
agreement.
qu'il y a eu un vrai
And I
changement, c'est
think
que ce
there's
matin,
been
le
a true
président Rouhani
change. This
s'est
morning,
montré
President
ouvert à cette
Rouhani
rencontre.
showed himself to
Le
be
président
open to
Trump,
this
depuis
meeting
des semaines,
happening.
dit,
And
il
President
est
Trump has
exigeant,
been saying
il a
for
mis ses
weeks that he's
sanctions.
being
Il a dit,
demanding,
moi,
he's
je
being
veux
tough, he's put
rencontrer
forward
pour trouver un
sanctions,
deal.
but I'm ready to have a meeting to
Voilà.
make a deal.
Donc je pense qu'on avance.
And I
Je
think
souhaite
that
que
we're
cette
making
rencontre puisse se
progress.
tenir
I
et qu'il
want
puisse y
this
avoir un
meeting to
accord entre les
happen, and I
États-Unis
want there
d'Amérique
to
et
be
l'Iran.
an agreement
Et
between
la
the United
France
States
jouera
and
le rôle
Iran.
qu'elle doit
And
jouer
France
avec
will
la
play the role that it's meant
Grande-Bretagne,
to
avec
play
l'Allemagne,
together
avec
with the United
toutes
Kingdom,
les
with
autres puissances
Germany, and all of
signatrices et
the
les membres
other
permanents du Conseil
signatory
de sécurité.
powers and the permanent members of the Security Council.
Iran is a country that is not the same country that it was 2.5 years ago when I came into office. Iran was the #1 state of terror throughout the world. There were 18 sites of confliction in my first week when I spoke with the folks at the Pentagon, including lots of generals and lots of other military experts. 18 sites of confliction, meaning 18 sites of big problems. Every one of them was backed by Iran, or in some cases actually using Iranian soldiers, but at a minimum Iranian wealth, much of it given in the ridiculous deal where they were given $150 billion plus $1.8 billion in cash, and they used that money for some bad purposes. With that being said, I think that Iran is a country of tremendous potential. We're not looking for leadership change. We're not looking for that kind of change. This country's been through that many times before. That doesn't work. We're looking for no nuclear weapons, no ballistic missiles, and a longer period of time. Very simple. We can have it done in a very short period of time. And I really believe that Iran can be a great nation. I'd like to see that happen. But they can't have nuclear weapons. Okay? Thank you. Excuse me? If the circumstances were correct or the right, I would certainly agree to that. But in the meantime, they have to be good players. You understand what that means? And they can't do what they were saying they're going to do, because if they do that, they're going to be met with really very violent force. We have no choice. So I think they're going to be good. I really think they'd like to. And by the way, President Macron told me every step that he was making yesterday. A lot of you said, oh, he came in. He told me long before he came in what was happening, I didn't think it was appropriate to meet yesterday, too soon, and things have to be worked out first. But President Macron told me exactly what was happening, who was coming, what time they were coming, where they were going to meet. And after the meeting, he told me exactly what happened. And I think he had a very positive meeting. Prime Minister Abe of Japan, also a large purchaser of oil from Iran. He was also very much involved, and, you know, look, he knows everybody there, so he was a very, very positive force. But I have to tell you, the president's done an excellent job, and we're going to see how it all turns out. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. I say it all the time about everything. Maybe it works, and maybe it doesn't. But I'll tell you what, we made a ridiculous deal. We gave him $150 billion, gave him $1.8 billion, and we got nothing. We got nothing. And by the way, that agreement was so short-term that it expires in a very short period of time. With a country, you don't make a deal that short. Countries last for long times, and you don't do short-term deals, especially when you're paying that kind of money. So I have good feelings about Iran. I have good feelings that it'll work. I know many Iranians living in New York City. I have many friends from Iran. They're incredible people, incredible people. So the last thing I'd like to see is a big problem, but we have to do what we have to do. Okay? Go ahead, please. No, you first. Go on. No, go ahead. Yes.
Thank you. President Macron, did you seek President Trump's permission before you invited Foreign Minister Zarif, or did you simply inform him that he was coming?
Thanks for this very precise question. But to be very clear, and we are part of the JCPOA. We decided to remain as a deal. So we are very much interested by the situation as a sovereign country. That's why we want the different parties to move. On the other side, as President Trump made it very clear over the summer, we never spoke on behalf of other countries. We just tested some solutions and to see if we can find an agreement with different countries. So we took an initiative this summer to make a proposal, a technical one. I got a reaction from Iran, who President Zarif visits on Friday morning in Paris. After the discussion we had at the G7 dinner on Saturday evening, I thought that it was very clear about where we can go together. So the day after, I decided to invite, as friends, Minister Zarif. So I informed, before making it, I informed President Trump that it was my idea not to involve the United States, not to say this is on behalf of you, of everybody, but to say, as friends, I think it would be a good idea to ask him to go back and try to negotiate something separately. So I did it on my own. I informed, before making it, President Trump. He was informed at each minute about the situation. And the idea, for me, was in case of structural move and important move and appropriate solutions, perhaps to have meetings between ministers, not at President Trump's level, because President Trump's level is President Rouhani. So this is my precise answer. This is a French initiative, but made by a clear information of the US President before, information as well of the three Europeans, and each time I inform President Trump in order to monitor the situation and to appreciate together if something more was adapted.
I have to say the JCPOA was a bad deal, should not have been entered into. A lot of things could have happened that would have been much different. They're allowed to test ballistic missiles. You're not allowed to go to various sites to check. And some of those sites are the most obvious sites for the creation or the making of nuclear weapons. And those things have to be changed, and other things have to be changed. And I will tell you, I have very good feelings about it. I think that we're going to do something. It may not be immediately, but I think ultimately we're going to do something. As I said, Iran is a much different country than it was 2.5 years ago. And we can get that back, and I'd encourage it. I actually had friends years ago, many years ago, they were in the real estate business, and they were in Iran, and they were building houses and building housing and building office buildings and apartment houses, and they did very well. They made a lot of money, and to this day, they're not exactly the youngest developers anymore, but I tell you, they were young when they went over there. They made a lot of money, and they loved the people, and they loved what was going on. And it's a country with tremendous potential. I also say that, by the way, with respect to North Korea. Kim Jong-un, who I've gotten to know extremely well, First Lady has gotten to know Kim Jong-un, and I think she'd agree with me. He is a man with a country that has tremendous potential. You're in between China, Russia, and South Korea. People want to get to South Korea. They got to get there somehow, and if they're going to do anything other than essentially fly, they want to go through. So railroads and everything else, so many things want to happen there. I think that North Korea has tremendous economic potential, and I think that Kim Jong-un sees that. He would be the leader, and I think he sees the tremendous potential that it's got. With respect to Iran, same thing. Iran is incredible people, an incredible country potentially, location that's a little rough neighborhood, but eventually it's going to be a beautiful neighborhood. I think that it's going to work out. And I really believe that those countries that went into the original deal, that more and more are agreeing with what I did. But I think those countries are going to be saying thank you someday. I hope they're going to be saying, including France, including the president, because I think we did the right thing. I know we did the right thing. If for no other reason, it's just too short. It's almost expiring, if you think about it. And somebody said, well, you'll go and make an extension. No, they're great negotiators. Look at what they did to get the deal. Look at what they did to John Kerry and to President Obama. Look what happened, where they're bringing plane loads of cash. Plane loads, big planes, 757s, Boeing 757s, coming in loaded up with cash. What kind of a deal is that? So I think a lot of good things are going to happen. And I just want to say this because I've spoken a lot with the president this last 2.5 days. We've never had a better relationship. We had a lunch that lasted for quite a while that many of you got to see. It was the two of us. No staff, no anything. He wasn't trying to impress his people. I wasn't trying to impress his people. We were just trying to impress each other. And I'll tell you what, it was the best period of time we've ever had. And we accomplished a lot. I don't mean just, gee whiz, wasn't that nice? He's a very capable man. He's doing a great job for France. He did an incredible job for the G7, and I just want to thank you. And you go ahead to your news conference, and very special. This was a very special, very unified 2.5 days, and I want to thank you for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I will leave the floor and the press conference to President Trump, and I will wait for the end of your own press conference. Voilà, finalement. Je ferai une conférence de presse. Je vous laisse la poser au président. Allez-y.
Écoutez, je ne veux pas faire de délation, Monsieur le Président, mais on a vu votre épouse, la première dame, boire un verre de vin français hier.
Your wife, the First Lady, drink a glass of French wine yesterday. So can you perhaps give up on your threat to put sanctions on French wine? Because if we've understood correctly, you have arrived at an agreement on taxing digital firms. Could you confirm that there has been an agreement between you and France on taxing digital firms?
No, I can confirm that the First Lady loved your French wine, okay? All right? She loved your French wine. So thank you very much. That's fine. You got it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Merci à vous. I will wait for the end of this press conference to have the press conference of the presidency. I will leave the floor to you. Thank you. Thank you. Good job.
This is worse than you are. I can't believe it. Jonathan. Come on up. should make a deal, and I think if they don't make a deal, it's going to be very bad for China. And I very much appreciate the fact that they came out last night, very late last night, and they said, you know, they want to make a deal. They want it to be under calm circumstances. It was a little different kind of a statement. I thought it was a beautiful statement. I thought it indicated a lot. Go ahead. Here we go.
I actually have a question for you on next year's G7 summit, but can I just clarify something you said? You mentioned earlier today...
One question, go ahead.
Let me do the clarification and then I'll get to the question.
No.
You talked about calls with China and a breaking news alert. I'm trying to understand what specifically you heard from China. And on next year's G7, you alluded today, dropped several hints about Miami, about Doral, and hosting next year's G7 at your property. What reassurances, if any, can you give the American people that you are not looking to profit off the presidency?
Well, I'll tell you what, I've spent, and I think I will, in a combination of loss and opportunity, probably it'll cost me anywhere from $3 to $5 billion to be president. And the only thing I care about is this country. Couldn't care less, otherwise I wouldn't have done it. People have asked me, what do you think it costs? And between opportunity, not doing things, I used to get a lot of money to make speeches. Now I give speeches all the time. You know what I get? Zippo, and that's good. And I did a lot of great jobs and great deals that I don't do anymore, and I don't want to do them, because the deals I'm making are great deals for the country, and that's to me much more important. Doral happens to be within Miami. It's a city. It's a wonderful place. It's a very, very successful area of Florida. It's very importantly only 5 minutes from the airport. The airport's right next door. It's a big international airport, one of the biggest in the world. Everybody that's coming, all of these people with all of their big entourages come. It's set up so, and by the way, my people looked at 12 sites, all good, but some were 2 hours from an airport, some were 4 hours from, I mean, they were so far away. Some didn't allow this, or they didn't allow that. With Doral, we have a series of magnificent buildings. We call them bungalows. They each hold from 50 to 70 very luxurious rooms with magnificent views. We have incredible conference rooms, incredible restaurants. It's like such a natural. We wouldn't even have to do the work that they did here, and they've done a beautiful job. They've really done a beautiful job. And what we have also is Miami. And we have many hundreds of acres, so that in terms of parking, in terms of all of the things that you need, the ballrooms are among the biggest in Florida and the best. It's brand new, and they want that. My people wanted it. From my standpoint, I'm not going to make any money. In my opinion, I'm not going to make any money. I don't want to make money. I don't care about making money. If I wanted to make money, I wouldn't worry about $3 billion to $5 billion, because that's what, I mean, at some point I'm going to detail that, and we'll show. But I think it's just a great place to be. I think having it in Miami is fantastic, really fantastic. Having it at that particular place because of the way it's set up. Each country can have their own villa or their own bungalow. And the bungalows, when I say, they have a lot of units in them. So I think it just works out well. And when my people came back, they took tours. They went to different places. I won't mention places, but you'll have a list because they're going to give a presentation on it fairly soon. They went to places all over the country. And they came back and they said, this is where we'd like to be. Now, we had military people doing it. We had Secret Service people doing it. We had people that really understand what it's about. It's not about me. It's about getting the right location. I think it's very important. Jonathan?
Like you're trying to boost your own brand.
Not at all. Go ahead, Jonathan.
Thank you, Mr. President. President Macron said he'd like to see talks between you and President Rouhani within weeks. Does that sound realistic to you? Could you see yourself in talks with the Iranians within weeks?
Well, it does. I don't know the gentleman. I think I know him a little bit just by watching over the last number of years what's happened. Tell you one thing, he's a great negotiator. But I think he's going to want to meet. I think Iran wants to get this situation straightened out. Now, is that based on fact or based on gut? That's based on gut. But they want to get their situation straightened out, Jonathan. And they're really hurting badly. Their inflation, as you know, because I saw you reporting on it, their inflation is through the roof. Their economy is tanked entirely. The sanctions are absolutely hurting them horribly. I don't want to see that. I don't want to see that. They're great people. I don't want to see that. But we can't let them have a nuclear weapon. Can't let it happen. So I think that there's a really good chance that we would meet. Jeff, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Another follow-up from what the President of France said. He said that there might be a need for compensation to Iran. Would you, given all of the criticism you've made of the JCPOA and the money that they got, be open to giving Iran compensation if it met some of the criteria that you laid out?
What he's talking in terms of compensation is they are out of money. And they may need a short-term letter of credit or loan. No, we're not paying. We don't pay. But they may need some money to get them over a very rough patch. And if they do need money, certainly, and it would be secured by oil, which to me is great security. And they have a lot of oil, but it's secured by oil. So we're really talking about a letter of credit type facility.
From the U.S. or from all the countries?
It would be from numerous countries. And it comes back. It would expire. It would be paid back immediately and very quickly. Yes, go ahead, please. Go ahead. Yes.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Now it's Aoyama with the Asahi Shimbun, a Japanese newspaper.
Good. Just left.
Now the U.S.
Your Prime Minister, Abe. Good man. Great man.
Okay, and now the U.S. and Japan have an agreement in principle, which you said is a tremendous trade deal for the United States. So
and for Japan, I would
yes.
say.
So are you still considering imposing Section 232 tariffs on Japan's auto exports to the United States on national security grounds?
Not at this moment, no. Not at this moment. Well, it's one of the reasons we made the deal, but no, not at this moment. It's something I could do at a later date if I wanted to, but we're not looking at that. We just want to be treated fairly. You know, Japan has had a tremendous trade surplus with the United States for many, many years, long before I came here. And I'll tell you something, we're transforming our country. We're taking these horrible, one-sided, foolish, very dumb, stupid, if you'd like to use that word, because it's so descriptive. We're taking these trade deals that are so bad, and we're making good, solid deals out of them. And that's transforming our country. That will be transformative and very exciting, I think, for our country. Very, very exciting. Please, go ahead. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Well, I didn't actually say you. I said the woman behind you. So why don't we do her first? You've been asking a lot of questions all day long.
Thanks, Mr. President. Yamiche Shelcender.
Can't say I don't give you access, right? Go ahead.
Thanks, Mr. President. Yamiche Shelcender with PBS NewsHour.
Yes.
Why do you think it's appropriate to invite Russia to the G7, given that they've meddled in the 2016 election? And are you worried that if Russia does come to the G7, that it might hurt you politically because it's only going to be a couple months before the 2020 election?
I don't care politically. I really don't. A lot of people don't understand this. I ran one election, and I won. Happened to be for president. I don't care politically. I'm going to run another election. I think I'm winning based on polls that we see. Whether I win or not, I have to do the right thing. So I don't do things for political reasons. Is it good? Probably not. Maybe it is. I mean, a lot of people are smart. A lot of people say having Russia, which is a power, having them inside the room is better than having them outside the room. By the way, there were numerous people during the G7 that felt that way. And we didn't take a vote or anything, but we did discuss it. My inclination is to say, yes, they should be in. They were... Really, it was a President Obama. I'm not blaming him, but a lot of bad things happened with President Putin and President Obama. One of the things that happened was, as you know, what happened with a very big area, a very, very big and important area in the Middle East where the red line was drawn, and then President Obama decided that he was not going to do anything about it. You can't draw red lines in the sand. You just can't do it. And the other was in Ukraine, having to do with a certain section of Ukraine that you know very well, where it was sort of taken away from President Obama. Not taken away from President Trump, taken away from President Obama. President Obama was not happy that this happened because it was embarrassing to him, right? It was very embarrassing to him. And he wanted Russia to be out of what was called the G8. And that was his determination. He was outsmarted by Putin. He was outsmarted. President Putin outsmarted President Obama. Wait a minute. And I can understand how President Obama would feel. He wasn't happy, and they're not in for that reason. Now, I'm only thinking about the world, and I'm thinking about this country in terms of the G7, whether it's G7, G8. I think it would be better to have Russia inside the tent than outside the tent. Do we live either way? Yes, we live either way. Is it politically popular for me to say that? Possibly not. I think a lot of people would agree with me, frankly, but possibly not. I do nothing for politics. I know a lot of you aren't going to, you're going to smile at that. I do nothing for politics. I do what's right. And people like what I do. But I just do what's right. If I wanted to go strictly by politics, I'd probably poll that. And possibly I'd say, oh, gee, I don't want Russia in. But I really think it's good for security of the world. It's good for the economics of the world. Remember, they're building a big pipeline in Europe going right up to Germany. And I said to Angela, who I had a great relationship, but I said, you know, you pay Russia billions of dollars, and then we defend you from Russia. And I say, how does that work?
Misleading statement that Russia outsmarted President Obama.
Well, he did.
Other countries have said that the reason why Russia was kicked out was very clearly because they annexed Crimea. Why keep repeating what some people would see as a clear lie?
Well, it was annexed during President, I know you like President Obama, but it was annexed during President Obama's term. If it was annexed during my term, I'd say, sorry, folks, I made a mistake, or sorry, folks. President Obama was helping Ukraine. Crimea was annexed during his term. Now, it's a very big area, very important area. Russia has its submarine. That's where they do their submarine work, and that's where they dock large and powerful submarines, but not as powerful as ours and not as large as ours. But they have their submarines. And President Obama was pure and simply outsmarted. They took Crimea during his term. That was not a good thing. It could have been stopped. Could have been stopped with the right whatever. It could have been stopped. But President Obama was unable to stop it, and it's too bad. Go ahead.
As the G7 host next year, you were allowed to invite other countries to come, guest countries, even though they're not necessarily part of the overall group. Would you consider inviting Vladimir Putin under those circumstances?
I don't know that he'd accept. Those are tough circumstances. He was a part of G8, and all of a sudden, he's not out or he's not in. So I think, John, actually, that's a pretty tough thing for him. You know, he's a proud person. Would I invite him? I would certainly invite him. Whether or not he could come psychologically, I think that's a tough thing for him to do. You have a G8, now it's a G7, and you invite the person that was thrown out really by President Obama, and really because he got outsmarted. President Obama, pure and simple. And don't forget, it was not just Crimea. It was the red line in the sand. And Obama said, never violate the red line in the sand. And then they went ahead and they killed many children with gas. It was terrible. And he did nothing about it. I did, but I was there years later. I did something about it, but I was there late. Go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Can you help us understand the timeline on the China calls? Were you referring to the statement by the Vice President?
Well, we've had many calls. Secretary Mnuchin is here, and you've had many calls over the last 24 hours, but certainly over the last 48 hours. We've had many calls, not just one. This isn't one. And these are high-level calls. They want to make a deal. And by the way, I think a deal's going to be made, but they want to make a deal.
So the Chinese are saying that there weren't any
The
particular
Chinese are not
calls.
saying that. Excuse me, let me explain something. The vice chairman of China, do you get higher than that other than President Xi? The vice president, the vice chairman, it's like the vice president, the vice chairman made the statement that he wants to make a deal, that he wants to see a calm atmosphere. He wants it all to happen. That says it there. I don't have to talk about, you know, you folks were reporting before, well, we can't find any phone call. He released a statement. I didn't release it. He released a statement.
But there were phone calls, sir, Mr. President. There were phone calls.
Numerous calls. And not only with Steve, there were calls with other people, too. Just so you understand, China wants to make a deal. Now, whether or not we make a deal, it's got to be a great deal for us. You know, and I told this to President Xi, who I really respect. I really do. I have great respect, and I like him, too. And he's a tough guy. But I have a lot of feeling for President Xi. He's very outstanding in so many ways. But I told him very strongly, I said, look, you're starting up here, and you're making $500 billion a year and stealing our intellectual property. We're down on the floor, lower than the floor. You can't make a 50-50 deal. This has to be a deal that's better for us. And if it's not better, let's not do business together. I don't want to do business. Forget about tariffs for a second. We're taking in tremendous amounts of money. Forget that. I don't want to do business. Now, when I raise and he raises, I raise and he raises, we can never catch up. We have to balance our trading relationship, at least to an extent. And they were unwilling to do that. And we'll never have a deal if that happens, but it's going to happen because they have to have a deal. And as far as phone calls are concerned, Secretary of the Treasury and other people have been receiving many calls, not receiving, back and forth, many calls. China wants to make a deal, and if we can, we will make a deal. We'll see. Go ahead.
Mr. President, if I could ask you a little bit about your China strategy.
Yeah.
President Macron talked a little bit about instability and the worry in the markets and around the globe about instability. One of the things that comes from, as you talk to people...
You're talking about global economic instability?
Right.
I don't consider it instability,
but
that's...
comes from is the back and forth and the changing statements from yourself, so that...
Sorry, it's the way I negotiate.
So my question is that a strategy? Is it a strategy to call President Xi an enemy one day and then say that relations are very good the next day, and then, it's gone back. It's
the way I negotiate. It's done very well for me over the years, and it's doing even better for the country.
Could you talk a little bit about
and I
why
do
it
think,
works,
and I do think that, look, here's the story. I have people say, "Oh, just make a deal, make a deal." They don't have the guts, and they don't have the wisdom to know that you can't continue to go on where a country is taking 500 billion, not million, 500 billion with a B, out every single year. $500 billion. You just can't do that. Somebody had to do this. This should have been done by President Obama. It should have been done, and Biden, Sleepy Joe. It should have been done by other people. It should have been done by Bush. It should have been done by Clinton. Double Bush. It should have been done. I'm doing it. Let me tell you something else. North Korea should have been done a long time ago. I'm doing it. I'm doing a lot of things that I shouldn't have to be doing. Please. Go ahead, please.
Beth Rigby, Sky News. President Trump, you've met our new Prime Minister Boris Johnson yesterday.
Yes.
You said he was the right man for the job on Brexit.
I believe that.
Do you think Theresa May was the wrong woman? And do you think that Boris Johnson can actually get a deal with the EU before October the 31st?
Well, Theresa was unable to do the deal. I gave her my ideas as to doing the deal very early on, and you possibly know what they are, but I would have done that. She chose to do it her way, and that didn't work out so well. I think she's a very, very good person and a good woman, and I really believe that Boris Johnson will be a great prime minister. We like each other, and we had a great 2.5 days. I've been waiting for him to be prime minister for about 6 years. I told him, what took you so long? I think he's going to be a great prime minister, and especially after spending a lot of intense time with him over the last couple of days. He's very smart, he's very strong, and he's very enthusiastic. And you know what else? He loves your country. He really loves your country. That came out maybe more than anything else. Yeah, please.
Vicky Young, BBC News. President Trump, Boris Johnson is very keen on a trade deal with the USA. You sound keen on it too. Some of his critics, though, are worried that you're going to do over the UK in that deal to protect American
I love
interests.
the UK. I own great property in the UK. I love the UK. I have no idea how my property is doing because I don't care. But I own Turnberry, and I own in Aberdeen, and I own in Ireland, as you know, Doonbeg, and great stuff. And I'll be honest with you, I think he's going to just do a great job as prime minister. You know, it takes a lot. It's so many different elements to being a great prime minister. And you needed him. I just think his time is right. This is the right time for Boris. This is the right time for Boris. Yeah, please, go ahead. Okay. Go ahead, right here. Say who you're with, please.
Robert Peston from ITV in the UK as well. You've obviously had a good few days with President Macron, who you appear to be doing business with, to use your favourite expression. After Brexit, who do you think will be your more important relationship? President Macron, France and the EU, or Boris Johnson, Prime Minister of the United Kingdom?
I think we're going to have just, look, France is a great nation. It's being run. A lot of things are happening. You know, it's not easy what he's doing. He's changing certain ways. It's a very hard thing to do. I won't get into it. I'm going to let him sell his ideas, but a lot of people don't disagree with his ideas. But it's a very hard thing to do. If you're a great citizen of France, you love your country, but you want to do the way you've been doing it for a long time. But maybe that's not working, and maybe they have to do what he has to do. I think he's going to do a fantastic job, but it's very tough for him. I know how tough it is for him. He's been having a hard time, and nobody would have an easy time. But I do believe he's doing the right thing. Boris is different. It's a different kind of a deal. Boris has to try and do something with Brexit. It's very tough. I deal with the EU. The EU that's a very, very strong group of people. They have their ideas, and they're not easy to deal with, I will tell you. We're very close to making a deal, by the way, with the EU. I have to say this. We made a great deal with Japan, and we're very close to maybe making a deal with the EU because they don't want tariffs. It's very simple. They don't want to tax cars. Mercedes-Benz, BMW, they don't need a 20% or a 25% tax. But we're very close. I think we're going to make a deal with the EU without having to go that route. I may have to go that route, but maybe not. We're going to have a deal, a really fair deal, but the EU is another one. We've been losing $180 billion a year for many years. That's a lot of money. How much can you take out of the piggy bank, right?
But which alliance will be more important, with the EU or with Britain?
Both. I don't want to say which. Look, I think we have been with, I guess you would start off by saying England, right? You know, I asked Boris, where's England? What's happening with England? They don't use it too much anymore. We talked about it. It was very interesting. But the United Kingdom is a great, incredible place. It's an incredible nation. And it's, you know, been one of our tremendous allies. And another one happens to be Australia. He was here also, Scott. He is fantastic. In fact, we're honoring him in Australia at the White House in a very short period of time. But I think that, excuse me? Will you visit Australia? At some point I will, yeah. At some point I will. Also Germany. Angela asked me to visit Germany. We're going to be doing that too. So I just think they're very different. And they're going to be going at it for a little while, but ultimately probably it works out. They may have to get out. They may not make a deal. The European Union is very tough to make deals with. Very, very tough. Just ask Theresa May.
Thank you, Mr. President. Zeke Miller with the Associated Press. I was hoping you could clarify. Last year, you left this summit in Canada, feuding with the summit host. This year, things seem to be a little bit different. You're talking about unity, had a hug with President Macron on the stage. What is different? And also, as President Macron said, he's passing you the baton now of leading this multilateral institution. You ran on the platform of America First. What is your now that you have a mandate for the international community, what are you going to do with it?
Well, we actually had a very good meeting. I had it out with one or two people where we disagreed in terms of concept, but we actually had a pretty good meeting last year. I would say that this was a big step above in terms of unity, in terms of agreement. We have really great agreement on a lot of very important subjects. But last year was good also. I mean, last year was good also. I think last year might have been a little bit underrated. You know, go ahead, please.
In terms of the G7 presidency, what do you want to do with it? What's your agenda?
Oh, we're going to do something hopefully special. We're going to build on what we have now. We built on something really good. We're going to be going in with some great unity. We really did. If there was any word for this particular meeting of 7 very important countries, it was unity. I think most important of all, we got along great. We got along great. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I'm Qingyi Chang with Shanghai Media Group. You just mentioned that Chinese Vice Premier Liu He said China is willing to resolve this issue through calm negotiations.
No, I didn't say it. He did.
Yes.
Yeah.
And will the U.S. negotiate in the same manner?
Yes.
And also, so the other issue, other question.
That was an easy answer.
So the U.S. will negotiate in the same manner with...
Absolutely. Great respect for China. great respect for the leadership of China. Absolutely.
And also the other question is that you say you definitely will invite Putin to join next year's summit.
I haven't said that, but I think that having President Putin in what was the G8, he was a member of the G8, and I heard he was a good member of the G8. Having him in, I think, is more of an advantage. I think it's a positive for the world. I think it's a positive for Russia. I think it's a big positive for Russia. And it's something the group is discussing. They are discussing it.
But just a few hours ago...
People feel very much like me, many people. What?
But just a few hours ago, Russian foreign ministers saying that it's not their foreign policy pursuit to return G8. What's your reaction to that?
You know, we'll see. I know one thing. If they were invited back, I think they'd be there. If they weren't, that's okay, too. I just think they'd be better inside than outside. I mean, as I said before, I really do. I think they'd be an asset. I think it would be a good thing. You know, some of the things, we were going in the room, and yesterday in particular, we were discussing 4 or 5 matters, and Russia was literally involved in all of those 4 or 5 matters. And a few of the people looked up and said, you know, why aren't they here talking to us about it? What are we going to do now? Go home? Take it easy for a day? Although I'm not doing that. I don't take it easy. But we're going to go home and start calling them at the end of the week and say, hey, how about this? Could have been in the room. We had numerous things that we were discussing, right? Numerous. We had a lot of things that we were discussing. And it would have been very easy if Russia was in the room. If he was in the room, we could have solved those things. Now they're just in limbo. But I have to say, with all of that, very little in limbo. But somebody will speak to them about some things, and frankly, they're not very complicated. But it would be easier if they were in the room.
Thank you so much.
Josh, go ahead. Josh.
Mr. President, there was a significant talk at the summit about climate change. I know in the past you've harbored some skepticism of science and climate change. What do you think the world should be doing about climate change, and do you still harbor that skepticism?
I feel that the United States has tremendous wealth. The wealth is under its feet. I've made that wealth come alive. We will soon be exporting. In fact, we're actually doing it now, exporting. But we are now the #1 energy producer in the world, and soon it will be by far, with a couple of pipelines that have not been able to get approved for many, many years. It'll have a huge impact. I was able to get ANWR in Alaska, could be the largest site in the world for oil and gas. I was able to get ANWR approved. Ronald Reagan wasn't able to do it. Nobody was able to do it. They've been trying to do it since before Ronald Reagan. I got it approved. We're the #1 energy producer in the world. Soon it will be by far the #1. It's tremendous wealth. And LNG is being sought after all over Europe and all over the world, and we have more of it than anybody else. And I'm not going to lose that wealth. I'm not going to lose it on dreams, on windmills, which, frankly, aren't working too well. I'm not going to lose it. So, Josh, in a nutshell, I want the cleanest water on earth. I want the cleanest air on earth. And that's what we're doing. And I'm an environmentalist. A lot of people don't understand that. I have done more environmental impact statements probably than anybody that's, I guess I can say definitely, because I've done many, many, many of them, more than anybody that's ever been president or vice president or anything even close to president. And I think I know more about the environment than most people. I want clean air. I want clean water. I want a wealthy country. I want a spectacular country with jobs, with pensions, with so many things. And that's what we're getting. So I want to be very careful. At the same time, you weren't called. At the same time, it's very important to me, we have to maintain this incredible place that we've all built. We've become a much richer country, and that's a good thing, not a bad thing, because that great wealth allows us to take care of people. We can take care of people that we couldn't have taken care of in the past because of the great wealth. We can't let that wealth be taken away. Clean air, clean water. Thank you very much, everybody. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Climate change, Mr. President. You didn't answer the question.